Hello, silly people, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Trey, and for the summer study that we're doing this summer, which is watercolor, and we will pick up where we left off with phase 2 of the process of watercolor. So you might notice that there's a slight difference in the way that this looks now, and that is because I washed it down. And now it's ready for phase 2, which is a second coat. Now, what does washing down do? Well, first, washing down is I take a large flat brush, which is this one right here, and then I go to my kitchen sink and while the water is running, dip this in a lot of water and then gently brush it down. And usually go, once and then twice and 3 times. And then I take a napkin, well, multiple napkins, folded, and then I sop up the water. Now, you might be asking, why in the world would you do that? Why would you do that? You're effectively stripping off that top layer of watercolor. You are removing that top layer off of the watercolor. And yeah, that sounds counterintuitive. But what it does do is that once that top layer is off, you are now free to go back in to reintroduce colors. And of course you're like, but that's just making more work for yourself. And yes, indeed it is. It's more work. Now, you can do one pass, right? You can do what we did last week and just leave it at that, right? As a test of watercolor sketches, I often do that, where you go in, you experiment, and then you cast it off or use that for larger paintings to be done with. And right, so this would be a more formal painting because I have it taped down with water tape that uses water to tape it down with. So it locks it in. And this is like an example of like a more formal painting. But for this, I use a lot of these blocks, these art blocks, for tests. And that is the purpose that I use these for, right? Because already you can see it's starting to come off, and I clamp it down to keep it secure. This one also. So starting to lift up off, because introducing water to it can make the paper warp and shift and come up in ways you don't want, especially if you're going to paint more into it. So usually I can go 3 rounds, which is the most that this paper can take in these art blocks, I find. Usually just 1 is usually good, but I like to go just a little bit further. So this is where we left off from last week, and I'll show an example of what they look like just before I wash them down, in contrast to what they are right now. But now we are ready to paint round 2. Now round 2 is slightly different in that I use multiples of the same color in general, but to reintroduce the colors, I always start again with a pink or an orangey brownish pink as a base coat, and I'll do that tomorrow as we start the orange coloring of phase 2. So now we have pink, and what we're going to do today is reintroduce the pink before we get started on the rest of the colors. So let's get started. All right, so here we are with number 1, starting again. So we have the pink, which is just rose madder, which I believe, yes, rose madder is the watercolor. Put in here, it was already used for the magenta and pink before, but I'm just reactivating colors, trying to mix it well. Okay. Now pink is we used it a lot for the underpainting before we layered up the orange, but nowadays it's going to be for the things that were pink before. And now I'm using a very tiny brush to reintroduce the pink. It's a slightly more concentrated than the first round. So for phase 2, I use more colors and a higher concentration of those colors. And also you can feel what was underneath, but phase 2 will really get started with the other colors. Pink is more like a base color. So it's almost like I'm doing the base again. It's kind of sort of, okay. I can also do it for the ears, because where the most pigmentation is on most people are noses, ears, cheeks. And so we're simulating that here. Okay, this side, take some more of that from there. And put it over here. All right, I was just thinking about something. What was it? Oh, corner of the eyes. Eyes and hands. Hands and feet have more of that reddish pigmentation. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do the closer area to the palms and the fingers with this pink, and then take this, dip it in some water, and then spread that out. And when you introduce water after the colors, it usually pushes the colors to those edges. So we'll do that again. First, put in the colors, and then take a brush, dip it in water, and then put that down. And then at the last moment, then touch it into the color. And so it bleeds, they bleed into each other. But the water, what is put down second, pushes that brighter pink more to the edges, but also gets diffused into the water. So hands and feet. She doesn't really have feet on this one, but we can go. All right, and that is number 1. 1 done. All right, number 2, and we'll do the same as number 1. We'll do ears, nose, eye corners, hands, and feet. And last time we did this more in dry brush. Do I want to do that now? How about this? We'll do wet for the inner ears, and then introduce that pink. Okay, the same on this side. All right, that is maybe a little bit too bright on that side. It'll work out. Next up is eye corners and nose. Okay, lips also have more of that pinkish coloration, and again, hands. Okay, dip that in some water, and then bring that in. Do the same on this side. Okay. Well, maybe it wasn't too much. Alright, and now get off most of it. Dip it in water, and then do everything what is in the color. And now introduce them to each other. Hey friend, how's it going? Alright. Okay, so let's do the snake's tongue. We have a chance. And feet. Okay. A bit too much, yes. We'll spread that out. Okay, again, mix that, get off most of it, dip it in water, and then introduce them to each other. Okay, and do the same. Could also do that with knees. I want to do that with knees. Knees, elbows. Okay, and around the color, and then introduce them to each other. Hey, water, have you met color? Okay, we can actually smooth that out. And again, introducing water to color will make it the color pigment push to the outside. Okay. Now let's do some knees. Pink, water, and then don't need that much. Now again, you probably won't see this at the end, but hopefully you can feel it. Sometimes it's not about seeing it directly, but feeling. I just realized it sounded kind of woo-woo. Okay. And that is the pink for number 2. All right, number 3 is the same as 1 and 2. Got the pink. I'm going to do some ears. That's way too much. Okay, and now pink and water. Don't touch the color yet. And then sploosh. Same deal with her other ear. Dip it in water. Touch everything around it. Okay, and then we'll probably go this way. So her hand. I think we can do it. Okay, thumb, middle, and index finger. water, and once again, and then introduce them to each other. All right, now corner of the eyes, nose, and some detailing on our mouth. Okay, and I could also do the underside of your chin. Why not? Your throat area has more pigment. And mix. Dip it in water, everything around it, and then introduce them to each other. All right. Also, we could do the knees. Let's dip water, and now color. Okay, knees, elbows. Yeah. All right. We dip it in water, and then push them to the edge. Okay. And feet. I can do that with a large brush. And just a little bit more. And then dip it in water, move it around without touching, what you just did, and then introduce them to each other. And okay, I was thinking about how to do this foot. I think we're going to more pigment on the edges, and then swooshy swoosh, dip around it, and then touch it. And of course, for the actual bottom of your foot pad, and all of that, we're going to use the actual pigment, and it will fade downwards. I mean, what am I saying? It will fade eventually on the second washing, because am I overdoing these? Maybe. I just might be introducing to each other. All right, and that is number 2, second level pink. All right, and that's it for today. I usually start off slow, and then we build upon everything as we go along. So tomorrow will be a pink, orange, slightly brown, like a touch of brown in it, a reddish brown for her skin color, and we'll reapply that tomorrow. Oh gosh. Hello Solar people, and welcome back to the channel. Today is day 2 of phase 2 of the watercolor process for summer study. So yesterday we did pinks here, and now today is a new layer of orange. So what I usually do is I have a set amount of orange, and this is a strange collection of colors. So here I have the pink, and I'm gonna put the pink in this, but here are the colors that are in the dish. We have Windsor orange, once again make an appearance, Indian yellow, Queen au Cordon gold, a green gold, yes, there is a green in this, and burnt sienna. So those are the colors, along with pink, that I usually have for one of the earlier base coats for orange. I also have this collection of yellows, oranges mixed together, and some slight browns in here, and that will also be used. So I'm now using 2 colors. This is going to be a base. So I have a brush, it's totally dry, and I'm going to soak up what I can of this pink and put it into this orange. So pinks is going to be a part of this. So this is like a base coat phase 2, and then we'll layer on top of that with orange or yellow brown orange. So that's all the pink. Make sure I get pretty much all of it, and that is taking all that pink, and now we can reactivate this orange. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 little shots. Now this is gonna have more water, because now this is the base. Let's get that closer so I'm not stretching. So when I use this palette, it has a deeper dish and I can fill it up more. So this is what I usually use for larger paintings of base coats. All right, that is waters and colors and waters. And let's see, let's take a look at, we let this mix or soften dissolve a little bit. So we have the colors: Queen of Cordon Gold, Windsor Orange, Indian Yellow, Green Gold, Burnt Sienna. Put these away now. There's nobody having that. And now pink. And I think there was some slight magenta in that pink, but it shouldn't be too bad. Put that away. All right, so here we have number 1, I believe. And yesterday we put the pink in, and today we're gonna reapply a base orange first, and then after the base orange, we can do a stronger variation of orange, wet into wet. But since this is a simple one, I'll probably keep it relatively simple, right? Okay, so now we can mix them, and it's going to make depending on how much water I used. This is usually pretty watery. Now it has an unusual live color to me. It's a very underskin, being that there's golds and greens and pinks, and that's why I use it usually for. Okay, so there's that, and then this is reactivated when we added the water. Mix that. So we'll call this True Orange, and this is like a base live color orange. But a lot of colors you can just experiment. Like I thought, since underneath the skin there's greens in skin tones, maybe I can put greens in some pinks and see what happens with that. Okay, so we are ready. So let's get to painting. Of course, we'll go from these edges. From the edge. Not yet. Okay. The spiky hair is. Let's move this orange off to the side because I keep reaching for it. Okay. Now larger brush, and this is going to be our base wet until wet coat with this orange. And I find this color oddly satisfying. I think this is coming up. Okay. Get out the smaller brush for the inner parts, difficult to reach, and work around. Well, I could just go over it, but I want that nose to stand out just a bit. Okay, let's get these parts and these edges. Okay, and now that this is our new base coat, we can take some of this yellow and then apply it to like cheeks, between her nose, well, between her eyes and her ears, maybe a little bit more. But it just punches it up just a little bit, in my opinion. I'm doing a lot of this on feel. There's no exact science, it's just, I think it makes it lovely. Okay. And now maybe just a little bit of orange on the bottom sides. Maybe a touch in the hand. Okay. Now for the tails and legs. Let's stack this. I think we should be good now. Okay. So this is like a new wet until wet, but with an actual underpainting color. That's what I would call this. Like that. And you can let it dry and do more true orange into it as it dries, just to play it up a bit if one so chooses. Okay, so we got orange. I'm gonna fade it down towards the tip. Orange, fade it down, and same with the legs, so it gets more color here and then it fades down. And that is level 2 of orange. Let's just do a little bit more into this cheek area. Alright, of course we'll come back tomorrow and do some more touch-ups, but nice. And that was number 1. Okay, so now the plan for this is number 2 is to do everything in this new orange base coat and then let it dry, and then tomorrow do the orange, true orange, for the body. So that's good. Okay. There's something about, for me at least, when I reintroduce like this base coat, it brings it together a bit more. Like it unifies it, and that might be because we already did the true base coat in the first phase, and this brings it back, brings back all those colors, but also unifies them. So there's not that harsh outline where watercolor can dry. This keeps it smooth. But sometimes I always wonder if it's more psychological than actual. Sometimes, or it's just how you feel. Or at least that's the way it seems to me sometimes. Okay. That's the head. Actually, cheeks. Okay, now I think I put too too much. So when there's too much, I spread it out. Spread it out, touch into it, bring it to other areas. Okay. And legs and tail. Okay, feet. And okay. Now let's introduce some of this orange. I don't know if I'll need another orange because it's looking pretty bright. Pretty bright. And we have another phase to go. There we are. Okay. And now number 3. All right, number 3, after we came in yesterday and applied some wet into, was it wet into wet pink? We added pink. And now we shall go for this new base coat orange. So, big brush. Actually, I should probably go for some of this spikiness first. And other areas. Okay, I think I can go in now. And all this. Alright. Now at this point, I pretty much know what I'm doing and where I'm going. So it's more about execution. The blueprint has been laid out. I know what colors more or less need to be where. Again, it's execution. It will start to tighten up in a bit. And tighten up, I mean, you then start to go from being excited about painting a thing to then getting freaked out and trying not to mess it up, which is a weird phenomenon that happens. Maybe it's just me. It's like once I get to where I can see it and most of the audience can see it, then it becomes this weird mental game. It's like, okay, you put in all this work and now just don't mess it up. But that might just be that inner demon speaking to you for no reason. Why are you here? And you'll notice that there was this pink outline where that pink dried, and this layer of orange just kind of obliterated that. There's a slight one here, and it'll do the same there. All right, and her hand. And now some orange for the back of the hand and the cheek area, between the eyes. I think maybe the underneath the chin, elbows. Let's do the whole underside and the inner part and the elbow, the underside and the back of the hand. All right. Okay, I'll use what's left over from the brush, and then we'll fade it from here and legs. Okay, small brush, touch up some of these areas. And this part. Again, there's a slight drawing effect with the pink around the knee, and that should. So sometimes when there's an outline, you can obliterate that by going over the top of it with another color. I think I want all of this. Okay, just a moment. Let's say we go more to the side. Alright, so I'm giving some more weight with the paint on this bottom side. And that is orange. We'll touch it up tomorrow a little bit. But since we have done all 3 paintings are done. Yes. All right, so now that I have old orange, new base orange, when I am done, I don't think I need this anymore. Well, I do, but I then start combining colors. So this, I've used these 2 separately. I can now combine it. Let's get all that pigment. And so I combine it with, there's a little bit, I can use this for dry brushing later, if I so wish. But I combine the 2 together, and now I'll let this dry, and this will cover it and keep it wet for tomorrow. And we'll go over some bits with this new orange. All right, and that is that. So yeah, phase 2, I often combine colors that I'm not using. Like if I made 3 oranges or yellow-orange colors, this is essentially kind of 3 because I added that pink one. I start combining them into one thing and then keeping that one, doing some more work on it, and then but yeah, I just keep going, keep painting. So see you tomorrow. Hello, stellar people, welcome back to another day of Summer Study Watercolor with Beautiful Beast Kiss, and today we're doing more orange. Yesterday we mixed up a new, well, not a new batch of orange, but we took the old orange, which is the yellows and some light browns, Indian yellow, oranges, browns, and we poured that into this, which is a combination of green gold, Queen of Cordon Gold, Indian Yellow, Windsor Orange. Mix that all up, and then we did the whole thing to reintroduce her base level skin, right? And now she's brighter than she used to be from that second application. So now we are going to use that same orange, and we're going to round out her image. All right, we're going to do the underneath of things, the neck, arms, the bottom of tail, sides of the legs, and maybe where the kneecap and elbows are, where there's more pigmentation. So let's get started on that. So of course the ear as well. And this is now dry brushing under the eyebrow. And we're just plussing it. We're adding shadows where shadows should be or could be to give her some more dimensionality. Like she is a figure standing in space. Now we don't have to do too much because this is a very stylized chibi form, right? The mind of your audience will fill in a lot of this. A more realistic depiction of Beautiful Beast Kiss would warrant greater levels of dimensionality, more shadows in realistic areas like under noses, eye sockets, under chins. We can't do that. But because she is so stylized here, that's not super necessary, but it does help. So rounding that up. Her neck would be darker because it's in shadow. Now the deltoid, or some impression of a deltoid. We could do the clavicle if we wished, elbows, the bicep, shadow. Pretty much at this stage I could do anywhere where I did the extra line in between. What else? Forgot this here. And under the tail, the sides of her legs. You could also do wet until wet for some of this, but I'm not too worried. So we're just helping define the form to help it not look as flat, just to give it some slight, like she's a character standing in space. Now there's no clear definition of light source, and at this simplified chibi form, it's not too. And let's the back part of her forearm. And now let's do the same for the others. So this was number 1. It's a small thing, but I think it helps punch it up just a little bit. That was number 1. This is number 2. Again, it's the same thing. We'll punch up the bottom. Slightly more refined than the ultra chibi form, but not by much. All things considered. Underside of the head, chin, under the lower lip, inside of her bicep. Also do some indication that deltoid under the chin. Now, if there was a light source coming, say, from here, shining, her neck would be hit, and shadow of her bicep under this arm and the back of her hand. Now, you could do this over and over again if you so chose. Right, punching it up over and over again. And let's see, because the tail is behind her, there's a bit of something. The underside of that tail. And as for her leg, again, if light's coming this way, then this side would be slightly more shadowy. Some undersides, knee indicator. And again, if the light's coming this way, we do this part and this side, maybe some hand inner side of her left leg. And then if the light is coming from this side, then this will be lit like this. Again, this is a very stylized, simplified form, but it always helps to think about some of these things. All right, and that is numbered. Hold up, let's get some of this. All right, now, next is number 3. All right, now we have number 3, and let's see. So for this one, the light source is, say, the gem. Right? If this is the light source, and it's beaming out in all directions, what would be in shadow? Also, I could do 2 light sources if I wished, or keep it relatively flat. It all depends. And I can just pretty much do whatever I feel like because of stylization. And again, if this is the light, it would hit this, and there'd be like a shadow. So the deltoid with this side, the back of the hand, and the fingers would be slightly darker. The back of her ears, and let's see, this side, maybe some slight, and the far side of her left arm, knuckles. Let's see, tail. Tail will be on the far side. I could do wet into wet for this one. And just to soften this and darken it on this non-light side. As for her lower legs, the dress would get in the way, but they would still be light about here. So we could do the inner kneecap and especially this side of the body. Okay. Again, I can soften this if I add water on this side and then join them up so that they bleed into each other. And the water will push the color back and away, but it also diffuse into it. Okay. Underside of the calf. And for the feet, light would hit the top of it. So it would be light, maybe a mid, or a watery, diffused, and then harsher on this side. So let's do that. And now we can do it lightly on this side. Dip it in water, and you can link these up pretty early. Get over to this side, and maybe for the lower, her left leg. If this is the light source, coming down, hit this leg, this would be lit, and this not so much. So let's simulate that, and it would be a darker area, say about the foot pad. We can do some knee definition, and now water. We can keep it close, water, and then introduce them to each other. And so it softens it. We can also add more pigment to the very edges, and it will diffuse into that whole area. All right. Pushing that color down and away from where I introduced that water. And that is just to give it a little bit of definition. Softly diffusing pigment with water. There we go. And that is her color. Fairly simple, but I think it makes a difference. All right. And that is orange, day 2. Tomorrow will be what? Red orange for the hair, and then we'll start the clothes after that. So I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's another day of watercolor for the summer study, and let's talk about colors. So yesterday we did an orange color so we reintroduced some of that orange. This was that day 2 of orange. And today we're going to do the red of her hair, and for that we have the red colors. So first, let's get these dissolved. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 6. Okay. So now we have our colors. Let that go for a little bit. And this is composed of, from left to right, burnt umber, Indian red, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, which is my classic red. I use it usually as a red base for other things. And Van Dyke brown, because we need a slightly reddish brown. And there's some orange that was left over in this. And we'll mix that up, and that will be her hair color. All right. So the orange is starting to dry out, which is good. But the brown is what we're going to do. Red brown is what we're going to do today. So let's get this mixed. Take that. Now red is a color that is used not as often because you don't see red, like vibrant reds, a lot in nature. A lot of greens, a lot of browns, yellows, blues, but red is a relatively not used as much color, and it's good for emphasis and to get somebody to look at a certain area, but just in nature, unless it's danger, which is why it's usually used for danger, because it's very rare and very noticeable. But red is rarely used. So here we have Beautiful Beast Kiss number 1. So the same thing that we usually do. Should I use wet and wet? Yes, I probably will. Okay, so we're gonna wet into wet. I'm gonna do this piecemeal, meaning in parts. So I'll probably start here and then move up, over, and then down. So let's give this red a test. Let it go here, because I also want to try some of that orange. This is the red, and we'll let this dry for a little bit. So for the wet until wet, we'll do it piecemeal, and we'll start here and then go all the way around. Also, I'll be reintroducing this color to make it darker at the bottom sides more than the top. Okay. Currently, it's not too bright. You want a nice. Sometimes red can be overpowering, so I have to keep that in mind sometimes. Okay, that's this part. And then we'll go up and over. So again, with that, get close. Let's stretch this over. Okay, the spikes are her spiky hair. Take some special attention. All right, so back to the red. Again, we'll go over. So we'll start at okay, now this might bleed down. So let's take a look at that. Yep, that's just watercolor doing what it does. Okay, things pull naturally downwards. Yeah. Okay, let's get that in the spiky area. Okay, and we're gonna reintroduce some of this paint at the end. We need that nice base coat to work from. Let's make this move over here. It's too much water. Okay. And we can sharpen up some of the edges with dry brush, but that will come later. All right. Okay. Okay. Almost done with this section, and then we're going to reintroduce some of this red down here, because again, things are darker at the base. So her hair is surrounded, or her head surrounded by this fiery red. Okay, I think that might be too much. So we're going to stretch this water over this bottom. All right, back to the red. And again, there's probably going to be some bleed, but that should be all right. And again, water can be chaotic. You can control it somewhat, but you can't control it completely, which I think is the fun, or at least that's fun to me. Everybody else's version of fun is their own version of fun. This is fun and relaxing. At least that's, again, how it feels to me. I could do this all afternoon. Just sit and paint. Just sit and paint. Introduce some more red, and that is her reddish hair. All right, we're gonna let this dry for a little bit, and then we can come back if we so desire for some dark areas. But for now, that's good. All right, for number 2, when we started, we did mostly dry. I think we did all dry brush, which is why it's a little bit brighter than the first one. But for her hair, this time, I think we're gonna do wet until wet to smooth it out. Again, we're gonna go in sections here and then over. And much like the first, I'm not too worried about too much water on the brush because it'll dry. And then we can reintroduce this red again. Okay, it's a little bit watery, but that's okay for now. Okay, so I'm gonna go up and over and around the ears. Okay, it's gonna bleed down a little bit, but that's all right. I think this is one of the most complicated parts of the whole painting is trying to get around her ears and head. Let's pull this back up and around. Okay, a little bit more water. Okay, now let's reintroduce some of this into this as it's drying. Just a punch of the colors, just a touch. Okay, get it and let it come down. Come on. And at this point, I'm just doing some dry brush, because I think there's a lot of water coming down. Okay, and I think that is, we can go back in a little bit and fiddle with it. I do want some more up here. All right. That was number 2. That dry before we do some slight alterations, but there we go. And number 3, same deal as number 1 and 2. Wet and then red as we go clockwise. Okay. And I think I mentioned before that red is a high staining color. Once it's put down, it's hard to cover it. Like if you don't like it and want to change to another color, it's harder to do with red than I think nearly any other color, which is good if you want an underpainting and say you want to have some sense of danger in it, and there's an underpainting of red before you actually paint the natural colors into it. But if you make a mistake, it's more difficult to cover with another color than, because you can feel red more than most colors. Okay. Now let's go over and do this part. Okay, let's pull this over, up and over. There's too much water. No. Do something like that, you can dab it with a towel to pull it up. However, it will always bleed, so I need to be careful now. Bleed into that area. Okay. Now a touch of water, just a bit for this lower part. Okay, we're pushing this water around to get other areas. So it was just like a drop here, and we can push it up, push it over, push it all around. And wet in general just gives it a softer look. We're gonna go over it in a bit with some harder lines, well, harder paint areas. Let's darken some of this, darken some of it. All right, here we go. All right, that is the red. Now let's go back to the first one and do some extra red. All right, so now it is slightly more dry, and we'll do a little bit more, but you will also notice that where the wet meets the dry, there is an outline, and this, let's get a closer look. There's a boundary line, if you will, with watercolor, and it does that, right? It's not a bug, it's a feature. But this is what I get rid of when I wash it down, right? Hard lines where the wet meets the dry that I don't want. And so that's why I wash things down. But right now, we can do some slight contouring, some tailoring with this red hair. So the underside of where the curls meet, or where the curls start, I can do that. Also, I can try to give indications of under. Right, so there's curls here, and just sharpen it up a little bit. So I can boost some of this. And with a smaller brush, you can give her individual hair strands if you wish, however much or little you feel is necessary. Just a little boost. And since we're going to wash this again at some point, I'm not too concerned with harsh where the water meets the dry. And again, I don't want to go too much with it. Just some slight layering look, I guess. And I'll do it again when this dries a bit more. And it more or less won't be too noticeable in the final, unless I really want it. But having strands, you can feel. Okay, a little bit more. Okay. And I can spend hours just doing dry brush, but I usually save it to the end because I know I can get a bit much with it. But that's just a little bit. Doing this I do mostly at the second and third phase, when I start the detailing, getting a greater idea of where I want things. So that was that. So we get more red for number 2, and the water is not totally dry. I mean, it's not totally dry, so it'll slightly diffuse, and I'm okay with that. And sometimes I even see patterns in the way it warps and shifts and moves, and I'll play some of those up, and sometimes I won't. It all depends. So this, okay, this one should be pretty fast. Okay, I think that'll be enough with this one. Again, I'll do some dry brush when this dries out. So I think that's enough for now. Okay, so the last one, same deal as the first two. I'll punch up that red for her. All right. Underneath, and for some individual locks. And usually in general, by this point, by phase 2, I kind of know how it will look in the end, or at least I guess I tell myself that. And of course there will be surprises where you're like, oh, that's a happy accidents, not so happy accidents, and things that just happen. And that's fine. Well, it's just part of the process. Okay, so I think we got most of it. And the rest we'll get when we do some more dry brushing. Punch up these shadows and specific curls. So I think that's enough for now. But I think you get the idea. All right, so we have let the orange dry for a little bit. Well, a day, maybe two. And so now I'm going to introduce this orange once more, I think for the final time before the dry brush, just in specific areas. We're not trying to go crazy with it, but we're just touching up some areas. Just touching up, okay? The neck. You can do this over and over and over again, depending on what you like. I try not to go too crazy with it, because again, I have a tendency to overdo things and go against my own best self-interest. It's like you had it, you just let it go, bro. Sometimes less is more, I guess, if you want to go that route. Okay, all right, and that's that for the first one. All right, orange touch up on number 2. Just trying to get some areas. I'm trying to push this tail back just a little bit, so we have a clear separation between the leg and the tail. Now, because I can wash it down, I'm a bit looser, and sometimes I can get reckless with the colors. It's like I know I'm gonna wash it down and then put another layer on top of that, and don't know when to stop. Okay, so that's that one. All right, orange touch up for number 3. Let's put some chin, maybe a little bit of this. Again, I'm trying to remember the lighting situation. This is beaming in all directions as our light source. All right, just a little bit here underneath, and of course the legs beaming out this side and the underside of this leg, so that this out, and a little bit of water. Okay, and that is number 3. So that is the painting for today. Tomorrow, well, I think it'll be next week. Next week we'll do wings, underclothes, tank, and dress. And then finish it out with detailing. So see you then. All right, so now we're back. And today we're gonna do some red. Shape this up just a little bit. Just a little bit. I want just a little bit more. So it's already dry. I'm gonna take this brush, I just dipped it in water, and then get that water off of the brush and into the dish. You don't need a lot, you just need a bit. Right, this is what I do when I don't need enough from an eyedropper. And so we have our little droplet. Okay, I'm gonna need this brush and a teeny tiny brush. And we're gonna do some edge work. And so let's mix this just a little bit. And now you can control how much of this red you're going to use. So I spread it out, moving up, because the water will pull this way. So the more concentrated I want it, I want to go this way. But for now, let's see. Okay, so where do I want it? I want it, so I'm hoping to define some of these edges. I can do it with a teeny tiny, but this should be all right. Okay, and I do this at this stage, because when I wash it down, it's going to wash away a little bit. It should still be there, but we're trying to help shape up some of these lines. And so when I do go in for my final detail pass, which I'm going to use mostly exclusively this one, I already know where I'm going. So underneath, okay, this is helping to shape it up just a little bit. I'll go one going into others. Have curls coming out. Now I'm trying not to get too deep into the weeds on this, because again, I could do this for quite some time. Okay, I will go, because she is a sun tiger and her hair is a flaming red and spiky. She is my sun tiger. So that red orange is to give it that flaming sun red. And a lot of times it's about feel. Right? The audience won't really care about all of that. They just go, oh, it's It's a cute character, but usually you have justifications in your mind about what is happening, and certain things will make sense only to you, and that's okay. And underneath the chin, okay, just a little bit more. I like it. And there we go, just a little bit more. And that was number 1. Same thing for number 2. Side, dip it in water, that water into the dry paint to reactivate, and you can mix it. I could have left this at the detail phase, but I just wanted to get a jump on it, especially with red being a not so used color. It kind of has its own place. Okay, so this time let's start. Okay, let's do this. So we're just giving a little bit of added definition. It doesn't need it remarkably, but I think it helps. Okay, let's do some of these for this. All right, let's do some of this side as well. Okay. Nearly got it. Okay, I think that's that. And number 3, mix, dip it in water, get that off into the dish. So the more water you add, the less concentrated, more diluted. So it's, for me, controlling consistency. And I use that consistency to make some undershadows and basically sharpen it up. Okay, and she's got curls. So usually I paint the bottom of things slightly heavier, which is why these marks. And I'll do this again at the end to get some of these individual strands. I think you can see some. Okay. Now, of course, you can go too far, and I have gone too far sometimes. And how do I know I've gone too far? Is when it starts to bleed excessively. You'll get these fuzzy edges. Fudgy. Okay. Here I want it comes off like flames or tendrils or flaming tendrils. Okay. I could keep going, but I think we got what we needed here today. And so yeah, if I ever wanted, a smaller brush and then add some more, I can do that. But so far, she's looking good. I think the hair is pretty much done. We can move on to underclothes, shirts, shirt, dress, wings, some other bits and bobs, but she's shaping up. So overall, the deeper I get into it, right? First phase was a lot of water, wet into wet. Second phase, wet into wet, but there's a lot more dry brushing. And we start the detailing process with a small brush. And in phase 3, we get into even smaller, but we'll get to that whole process when that time comes. So that is that. Hello, back again with the summer study of watercolor. And this is phase 2, round 2, part 2, where we have washed down the art being this. This is the second phase. So last week we started going back into it with our colors to reintroduce them. But for now, we're going to talk about blue shades, which is what we're going to do today. The blue shades, I have only left these 2 out, and I have these 2. I have this, which is already dried up, but I will reactivate it. I will do 2, let's say, should I do just 3? Let's try 3. It might be too dark. But for this, I did the less bright and bold blues. So for this, we have cerulean blue, my classic, cobalt blue, Windsor blue, green shade, one of my favorite blues, ultramarine, green shade, and French ultramarine. And all of these colors are in this dish. And the plan is we're going to go over the blue sections. We're going to go in light and then introduce the darker on the underside of things and in certain strategic areas. So let's get started. Let's put this away. All right, so today is a blue day, and so on phase 2, I usually have multiple of the same color. So variations of today is blue. Like I'd have a light blue, a middle blue, and a dark blue, if this was going to be on a larger piece. Since this is fairly small and we're going fairly quickly throughout my whole process, I've narrowed it down to two, this lighter blue and this darker blue. And then whatever's left in this, I can dump into this to make an even darker shade if I so desire. So first, let's start off with mixing this light blue. And so now we have a lovely shade of blue, and we'll go in where it is needed. So it comes in light, and on the upper parts, light is fine. And then let's mix some of this dark blue, which is just reactivating what already exists that I had used for darker outlines. So I try to mix it pretty well because you're going to reapply this. Now I do notice a difference when you reactivate a color. It'll be slightly, slightly grainy. It's not as fresh as a totally new, but because we're going to wash it down again, I'm not too concerned. So I introduce this at the lower edges. Use this blue, but it gives it variation, and I'm not too worried about contaminating my blues. So I'll swap between the two fairly regularly. So you got her blue armband, sweatband, if you will. Again, touch into this, and we'll darken that side. And as for, well, first let's get all of this. Now, if I wanted to pull the darkness up, I could flip it. So for example, turn it upside down, bring in this dark blue, and then touch along this bottom part, and then let it bleed upwards. You can also do that with the legs. But first, let's do some of these. I want to do this part, which is her ankle bracelet thingy. It's not really a bracelet. So we can do the same for her underclothes. So we're reintroducing colors, but also giving it a hint of where is the light, where is it darker in certain areas. And let's do this. But it increases the interest and variation, which I think is visual interest, makes it better. And since, again, we're on a slant, things will pull down. I don't need to get too heavy with it. And so that is, all right. Since this is one of the most simple of the three, it doesn't take much. And then of course we'll let this dry. And then the next phase would be the dry brushing. But that is blue for number one. Let's flip it back. And there is number one, blue reintroduced. For number two, it's the same deal as number one. We've got our light blue, we've got our dark blue, got our brush, and this time we're going to do all the light or the lighter variation of all of it, and then come back after that's all done with the darks. So let's go. Again, there's a natural tendency, since I'm on a slope, for it to, the water will pull downwards towards the bottom. Close. Okay, and now pull it down towards the bottom. Same with the legs. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just it increases makes it not look so flat. And sometimes that's exactly what you're going for. You're going for a relatively flat, you can do that. But if you were to increase the visuals on it, this is one way you could do that. Okay, now that's all. Did I do? Okay, quite remember. Okay, now the darker. So doing the blue is like doing the wet and the wet. This is wet and the wet, where we applied the color as the wet first, and then introduce blue after that. Right now it's a bit too dry, so we'll go with some more of the base blue color and reintroduce that. And it'll push the colors up. Also do that, and darker blue on the under where the shadows would be, and then use this base blue. Reduction. All right, and then blue on this thing. All right, and that is blue number two. Of course, we'll detail it out with dry brush after, but there you go. Let's introduce some of this blue to the chart. And that is number two. And for number three, we're going to do it like a combination of 1 and 2. But first, I don't think I tested out the colors. So again, we have our color swatch. I'm going to test out this lighter blue, and that will be on top. Okay, that's the lighter blue. Let's do a little, add a little bit more to it. And this is the darker blue. We'll put that just underneath. Now we can tell which is which, darker, lighter, and all that, but we'll let this dry and then we'll see how this looks after. But for the actual piece itself, this is number 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the light blue first on all of the sections to punch up that color. And then we're going to do the dark at the edge, the undersides, or where we want the darkness to be, and then drag that with the lighter blue. I'm trying to show you different ways of doing things, so hopefully it can help you. So first we're going to apply this lighter blue. So her sweatband, this one has two blue sections and 1 white. Okay. Sometimes it helps to get the dark away from yourself so you're not grasping for it. And the light blue for the parts that are seen at the shoulder. All of this for her midsection. I'll go from left to right because I'm right-handed. It helps me. All right. And the under part of her dress, well, under her athletic wear under the dress. And I'm avoiding certain sections because of reasons. We're going to do this, the other parts on the dark parts. Okay. And for her ankle thing. So we have reintroduced our blue, somewhat sloppily in some ways, but you've done it. Okay. So now we're going to take some of these dark sections and blend them into other areas. So for example, if the light's here, this is going to be our light source. And it's beaming out. Things closest to it are lighter. So if we're talking about the sweatband, this would be lighter, but the other side of this is darker. So we're just trying to simulate this. So we'll take that dark area, comes to a certain point, and then we go to our lighter blue, and then we can pull it, pre-wet an area, and then introduce them to each other. All right, again, we can do dark, and the light's coming here, so around this side, and of course closer to the shirt, which would cause a shadow. Light, okay, again, dark at this edge, and lighter where is it more available to light. Now for this, her midsection, light here, so the light is going to shine on her front side. But say this is the side plane. So we can all of this side, and then the lighter blue. Yikes. I'll get really sloppy with the blue. And so this, and then we introduce them to each other and watch it bleed. Also, we can do a bit of. All right. As for the legs, we can introduce the dark areas. So again, side plane would be here. This area I want it dark. To add more dark over here, and then on this side and this part, and then the rest is this lighter blue. And introduce all these sections together, and so we can see more darker value blue shifting towards. And as for this, it's again light would hit the top of this thing, and then the sides would be darker. So I'm spreading out this dark blue, and then we'll introduce the light blue on this side and let it bleed. And that is the blues. Of course, I can touch up some areas just to make my point just a little bit more. I got a little sloppy with it, but and that is Beautiful Beast Kiss part, well, painting 3. And we'll let this dry and then go, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow we're going to do some greens. So I have my greens already laid out in the dishes that I want them in. This is going to be the lighter greens, darker greens, and then I have my all greens here. So we'll work on that tomorrow. And also what we can do now, since we don't need this dark blue, I think I'm done with this dark blue. So I'll make sure it's mixed, mix. And then I put it into, I still leave some in here so that if I want to do some dry brush, I'll let this dry and then that we can use that later. And that'll dry today, and then I can start on the greens tomorrow. Right? Let this dry, and then we'll do the greens tomorrow. I'll probably leave this one just as it is, but this one I want for these two greens. All right, so that was the blues, and I'll see you tomorrow for the greens. Hello again, and welcome to the summer study of watercolor. And today we will be doing green. Green is the color of the day. And I have two dishes, three actually, but these two are 3 and 3. So I have all my lighter greens, which is green gold, olive green, and permanent sap green, which is I always use as a base. Usually green gold is my base standard, but these three are my lower level lighter greens. And then my darker greens, the darker shades, are praline green. Is there any shade on that? No, just praline green. And oxide of chromium. Yeah, that's a very... And lastly, we have Windsor green, yellow shade. And all of these are on the darker side of my greens. And then of course I have all the greens mixed together in this one. And then lighter here, but I won't use this one, I'll just use this for my lighters. So let's give these a test before we actually start to use them. So we go first for, let's stick that in water, the lighter greens. And I always go lighter to dark, as that's pretty much what watercolor, or the basis of watercolor is. We're adding more and more color to a light white background. So we'll put, let's see here, and we're gonna just have 3 thin. So this is the light green, just have that in. And then we have dark green, darker green. And you can tell in the dishes themselves, the dark and the light. So usually if I was going to paint, say, a large nature scene where there's lots of blues, browns, and greens, usually the green would be my base, even for the brown areas. And so I would do a very wet into wet to get that base, and then from there I can go wet and then another wet to stain that, and then lastly I'd go to a darker color. First, let's do a thin band of this. This one comes out what I think is a bit bluer on the blue end, which is good for those green shadows. So say you have a field of green, you can stain that lighter green with this to make shades, darker shades. And so now this is what we already mixed before last week. And so I am reusing, and like I stated last week, that when you reactivate a color, it starts to get a little bit pulpy. You can see what was once dried paint in it. So if you want fresh, slightly pulpy colors, I'd go for a new fresh coat. But for this is layer number 2, phase 2. I'm not too concerned, as I'm going to wash it down anyways. But this is what was once my dark shade, and there's that. So now we have a light, a dark, and then what used to be dark that I reactivated here. Let's get a close shot on this. So again, we have right here the dark that I started last week and now just reactivated. This is the new fresh light green up top. This is the dark green now, right here. And so now we have our 3 greens. And now we can start painting our Beautiful Beast Kiss for today. So here we have Beautiful Beast Kiss number 1. And today is, of course, the green shade. So we'll be doing her eyes, her tank top, and dress. So starting, we go from up, downwards. So for this, I think I'm going to use this as the starter. This pulpy old green as my base. And so we'll introduce the color like so. And I'll be doing it differently on the other 2. But I'm going to do the whole thing. Again, the whole thing. So This is more or less like our wet into wet, but using green as the actual color instead of water to wet it. Okay, so we have green applied. And now we'll take our light green and we'll dab this into the bottom. Light green at the bottom. And then we'll do the darker green and then we'll dab this at the top. And so those are her eyes. We'll let that dry a little bit and then we'll go back into it in a moment. Now for these, the tank top and the dress. So for this, we're going to go light. So we'll just swish it in water a little bit just to clean it up just a bit. Since it's all green, I don't need it super clean. If you're changing colors, you can get it, clean the brush over and over. So let's see, how do we want to do this? Yeah, let's do it. So again, we're gonna paint this base green in. So this is our base, and base green. Now that we have our base, now we can go in with our light green, and then just stain it. And then we'll move on to the dress. For the dress, we'll do all the colors, the light, this base, the light, and the dark. So this is going to be our base. This is our water substitute for the wet into wet. So move that around. I'm going for coverage on this screen coat. So again, I'm pretty methodical with how I'm doing it now. Now, if you mix more colors, you can blend as many varieties of green that you want. I'm not saying it won't get slightly muddy, but you can always experiment and see what works for you. Okay, so now we have our green base, and then after that, we'll go for the light. She doesn't particularly have a light source, but in my mind, let's make it lighter up top, and then darker towards the bottom, and then darker at this bottom edge. You can do some specialty areas, but more or less, and there it is. And now we can go back into places that we've already done, and then touch it up just a bit. So I'm not sure this is exactly dry, but let's say we want to put this darker green in the center of her eye. Let's see if it's dry. It's not dry, but it'll go from where you want it and it'll bleed outwards to diffuse with all the more watery areas. And then we can, as it dries, keep doing that to get it a darker, and it won't bleed as much as it dries. Switch that a little bit, green, and for the tank top, we'll just do the sides. We'll just dab into the sides. So you could say these are the side planes, just a little bit darker than the middle. And again, we can do that as it dries as well. And once more for the bottom. And I know it's not dry. Underside, and we can be strategic with certain areas, and we can continue that as it dries. So now let's go to number 2. All right, now we have number 2, Beautiful Bee's Kiss, and the snake. So there's going to be a lot of green usage here. Again, we start with her eyes. We're using the green as a base for this wet into wet. That up. I'm trying to use less wetness, so I'm trying to stretch this paint. Okay, and the same for this. Stretch it downwards. All right, and again, light green. We'll touch this in at the lower section, just dabbing. And then the dark, we'll dab at the top. Dab. All right, swish it in some water. Now for we should probably do the snake first. Yeah. Okay, so for this snake, we're gonna leave the bottom part alone. The underside of the snake, that'll be just fine. For the upper part, we're gonna go lighter, darker. So what I mean, one coat, that's it, and then stain it, and then put the lighter in, and then stain it lighter and darker. So that's the plan. So this is our base. I'll put that in. I'm trying to stretch this color, which means covering all of it without dipping it again. All right, so base 1. Number 2, we're using this base as the basis for this. All right. Now, after a while, you'll get more control over how much water or color pigment that you want by either dabbing it or switching it around. using a fuller brush. All depends. Okay, so light. We're just gonna go just to darken it up a little bit. I'm also gonna do the same for the shirt, her tank top. So again, this is the base. I'm gonna try to make it stretch. And I'm not gonna totally touch this edge. So I'm gonna come close, but not touch it. And we'll see how much control we have over this thing. Because watercolor will want to go where the water is. And sometimes you can't quite control all of that. So we're gonna try to go from this way. This pulling up water this way. Okay. Now the lighter, and dab that in there for our wet into wet using 2 colors. And so now let's do this back part. Again, we'll try not to touch or connect the dab that light green. Okay. So now for all of this, it will be base, light, and dark. All right, let's get to it. Wondering if I should have gone for the head first and then gone all the way down. Can I still do that? Let's see. And why? Because it'll be more dry where I start than where I finish. So if I want it darker up top, I'm trying to paint it early, and then it dries as I go on my way. Of course, I want to keep this wet, so I'm reintroducing watercolor. Okay, a little bit more. Now I can join them by going this way and this way, or I can just continue on up. Usually when I paint, I have either music on or podcasts, but when it's me on camera, I cut that out. Okay, so that paint. All right, so again, a lighter shade. Going for the over part, and then down the back, lighter, coming across and down. And the darker shade, add it, letting those blend, and go. And we'll let it bleed towards the top, or I could have let it bleed towards the middle, given that this is now the underside. Okay, and that is, all right. Now we could give this another coat, but I think that's good. On the last round, we can just do this and this, depending on how we feel. How do we feel about it? And now the dress. Or do I want to give this another coat? Actually, we'll give her eyes a little bit more. So they should be a little bit drier. We'll go low and then come up, low and then come up. And then for the darker, take the dark, touch, and then let it bleed into dark, touch, and bleed into. All right, now for the dress, which I think we'll do the same as the snake. We'll do this as a base. Try not to touch that so it doesn't bleed. Okay. Again, there's no real light source, so it's just whatever I feel like. Go from the side. I could mark out where the highlights are, but again, I'm not too fussed about this. On an actual larger scale painting, I would like to have some kind of idea about where my light source is before the painting process. But for now, I'm not too, this is sort of like a demo, so I'm not too fussed about it. Okay, so green there. Again, light green up top, light green, let's say the light is somewhere here, and then the dark green on this side and under. Try to keep it low. And sometimes you'll see patterns as it dries, and then you can push those if you so desire. It all depends on you. So that is wet into wet, more or less, using various greens. Now I could have, say, 3 totally separate greens. Like I could use the 3 that I put in here, and then use that as coat 1, and then the darkers, use that as a separate on another phase, 1, 2, 3, and then do the same. It all depends on what you're going for, how much time you have, and how involved you want to get. Let's touch into, okay. All right, next up is number 3. Okay, number 3. Same deal as number 1 and 2. Using this as a base, a light green and a darker green. But now this time we have a light source coming from the gem, the dimensional gem. So where all this beams out will be lighter, and then the sides will be darker. And that is, so starting with this is the base. We're going to, let's see, We're gonna leave some of this dry. So let's say we want this wet, and then, so we paint this and pull it downwards, and then paint this side, and then pull that. So again, where it'll be darker is where it is the drier than other areas. So if you want a good blend, a lot of water on this area. Okay, maybe not a lot, but more. All right, and now this light green. Coming from the side, and this area, and this area. And let's give a touch, just a touch of dark, just a touch of dark. Again, we'll let it dry, come back a little bit. Okay, same with the dress, this thing. We're gonna leave this dry, and then paint over it. So this will be the midtones. Midtone, okay. This will be the light. So light, light, light. And then we'll go dark on this side. So dark, dark. I'll make more mistakes when I go faster. And then blend these into each other. Okay, okay. And you can see some of that bleed, and that's fine. You can't always control it. And we'll do this in dry brush. All right, now we can do this, the gem part. A lot of water, and then stain in some colors like green, the lighter green as a halo on the edges, and then the darker near the center. We can shape that up later. Okay, again, lighter for the eyes. It's pretty much dry now. Lighter, and then the darker upper and center. Upper and center. Again, upper and center. And we can shape that up as it dries. A little bit. Use this light green. And again, we'll stain this area just to give it an impression that the light is hitting it. Also, what one can do is, if you have a napkin, you can blot it. So say I wanted to fade this a little bit, not make it so harsh. I can introduce it to smooth it out, and then take a napkin and then dab, 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 dab. Right, so you're getting up some color onto a napkin. If you want to do that, it's just a technique. Now again, you can introduce maybe a touch, and that is the green. And now lastly, when I know I'm done with the color, I'm done with the greens. I could touch things up, but I'm just gonna leave it as is. So take a brush. What I'm gonna do is combine the three into this darkest, because I have no use now for this or this. So I'll put them both into this. Now this one's easy. I just pour it, make sure that the others are dry. Yep, a little bit just in case I want to do some dry brushing with this. And this one, I take a medium brush, and while it's dry, you can sop up some of this color and then get that excess off into this dish. So I'm sopping it up and moving it to another dish. Take it, and then take it, and move it. Take it, move it, take it. This is a very old brush as it comes off. So I use it a lot of times as a mixing brush. Take it, take it, move it. I'll probably leave just a little bit in there just in case I want to do some touch-ups. And that, so now I have this new green, and I'm gonna let this dry so I can do dry brush later. Much like this orange, and the blue is starting to get a bit drier. So I want to dry these out by leaving them out. Since it's been warm outside, this should dry pretty good overnight, and then I can do my dry brushing when I feel the desire to at a later date. Alright, so that was green for the day. And tomorrow will be, I think, the wings and some detailing maybe, the start of the detailing phase. Oh, wings and stripes, yes. Wings and stripes. So until then. Okay, so another day of summer study watercolor. And for today, we only have one color that we are doing. Well, a couple colors, but the freshest color that we've made today is a pink, permanent mauve, and permanent magenta, which is usually my base for a purple. So it's a pinkish purple very light. And so here we have number 1. And so we're going to do the wings. That is our first matter to be addressed. The wings, and then what else? Stripes. That's the main thing for today. We also might do a little bit of detailing in various colors, because now that we have all the colors that we need, and these are all dried out now, right? Yes. All of these are dry. This one is the freshest that I just started today. So let's get started on this pink, a lively purplish pink, a lovely color. And this is what I will use for her wings. But there's not much to do on these, but we're reactivating what we've done before to make it, right, we're pushing colors now. This whole second phase is building upon what we did last time. Right. So those are the wings for her. This one, but also we want to start the stripes. So stripes will be what? This dark brown. We could do this light reddish, a reddish orange, or we could do both. Or we could do orange and brown. Choices, choices. I think I'll probably go for orange and brown for this one. And then we might do some of the reddish orange. Okay, so what we're gonna do for this though, is we're gonna take one squirt drop. At this point, it's about controlling how much water is in use. All right, and I might take all of these and put them in here later, but we'll see how we feel about all of this. Okay, so stripes. Let's say since we use the most water here, how about we use this as the base? So say we introduce this as the base for the brown, and then once we have this base, then we can introduce things like this orange, and then we'll put this brown on later. I think I want for the stripes more orange brown than anything else. Okay, so for her facial stripes, and then add some of this brown. Ooh, that's nice. Now again, once I wash it down, I have noticed that colors that have been diffused with wet into wet tend to come up just a little bit more than if you dry brush it. So that is just something to note. And let's keep darkening up this orange just a touch. And let's do all of this facial stripes. And now for the brown. And of course, this is always about experimentation. Try out different things and see how you like. Some things might not work. Okay, dabbed it in some water, put it in the orange, and let's do arm stripes. Okay, now the brown, again, brown. Sometimes I also add blue, a faded black blue, but I like that orangey brown. So we'll continue with that. Okay, let's see. Let's do the tail next. So by this point, you can tell that we're coming towards the end of not just this phase, but also this whole project. Because you don't have to tell people what it should look like. It's all there. Okay, I'm trying to stretch out this one so that it's getting less and less on the brush as we move it along. So darker, and then it fades lighter as it comes towards the tip. Now for the leg stripes. So that's that, and now the brown. All right. And that was wings and, hold on. Let's get her eyebrows. All right. And why I waited it. Put my hand through wet paint. This is why we go upper left to lower right. Okay. So anyways, why I did, come on, man. Okay. So now she looks pretty tightened up. We did the wings and the stripes. Nice. Set this aside for a little bit, and then we can try for some dry brushing as we move towards the finish. All right, so number 2, same thing, wings. Whoa, this doesn't show any wings. So stripes it is. So this time, I think we're gonna go this reddish as the wet into wet part. Yeah, just wanna make sure I mix all. Sure, why not? Why not? Okay, so now that it has all the pigment in it, that was once dry, this will now be our base. And okay, let's put some orange in it just to darken it up a little bit. Back to that red. Now let's do all of the facial stripes. Okay, and now the orange. Let's go the opposite way. Orange, and now the brown. All right, swish it in some water. Back to the red and orange. Arm stripes again. Orange and this chocolate brown. I can't quite remember what her tail was. It like this, and then one here. I can't quite remember. Oh well. All right. So tail stripes. Swish it in some water. Go for that red. And again, we're trying to stretch this all the way to the end. And so the more you use it, the less is on the brush. So we're stretching it over, and the less water that's on your brush, the darker it will be. Just touch at the bottom, and for this here we're trying to stretch it, and all right, and that's the legs. And if you layer over and over, you tend to lose lines, which is why we do the earlier rounds to solidify where the colors are, so that if the lines do get lost, we know pretty much where we're going. Okay, and so darker. All right, and that is. Oh, wait. I forgot again. Let's try to put our hand in paint this time. Her eyebrows. Okay, and there we go. Stripes are. All right, so now it's number 3, and this time I think I'm going to do this one slightly different as well. So first, get off all the excess color off the brush. We're going to go all red, then all orange, and then all brown. And we'll see how, if that does anything. Is there a noticeable difference? Okay, so let's see. So eyebrows. Stripes will go from this way to this way. I can already see where I'm going to have some problems. Yeah. In that I've got my hand on things that will be painted, and I probably should have done the wings first. That probably would have been a good idea. It's too late now. Okay, this is gonna be a problem. Okay, arms, the left arm specifically. Legs, do we need that much? All right, now for the orange. Now the true test, whether I can do it without moving my hand through other stuff. Okay, and arm. Careful. Okay, the most dangerous one is out of the way. Oh, never mind. Spoke too soon. Okay, we're dragging all the way to the end. Okay, now we should be out of the woods. And the legs. And there we go with that orange. Now for the brown. Okay, deep breath and let's go. I really like that brown. Okay, trying to figure out how to place my hand. Okay, I think we got it. Just gotta hold it at a length. Okay, now for the face. Face stripes. And good. Alright, now let's try to get as much off the brush as we can. And now the tail. Try to stretch this. So yeah, I think, okay. Now, arm and legs. Alright. So that is stripes. Now let's do those wings without. So we swish it in the water, and we try to get the most amount off on the towel. Once more, use the dirty water, switch to the clean water, and then to the towel. Okay, got that nice magenta. Again, I gotta be careful. Should have done this first, but hey, we're here now. Okay. And tomorrow we'll go in with the blue, but one step at a time. I've noticed that this painting watercolor has made me more patient, because when I'm not, bad things can happen. So I try to do limited colors at a time. Don't try to do too much every day. Just build. And that should work out in the end, allegedly. Okay, so that was pink. Now what? Anything else I want to do? What I could do is I could do some of this light brown or orangey brown. And I think I might do that. And then we'll put all of this into this and this into this. But while I I can do some touch up. So I'm trying to think of all the areas where the light might hit it. And I realize I am playing a dangerous game by not letting it dry. Yeah, but I think we're good. Let's do this leg. This one should be alright. Okay. I think that is good. So that's that for number 3. Alright, we're back to number 1. I'm going to use this orange to tighten up some things. But also, I think before that, we are going to do the green for her eyes. Green for her eyes. So again, we do water on the brush and we remove the excess into the dish. And the amount is up to you. But since there isn't a lot of green parts I want to go over, I'll also go over it tomorrow. But I have my tiniest brush. Teeny tiny. And just trying to mix this to make it more concentrated than it normally would be, because we're going to be doing dry brush. So have a green, and first usually go along the outside and then do the inside. And of course tomorrow we'll go over it again we'll go outside, and at this stage I can do a lot of more dry brush than I did previously, because we're coming towards the end. And right now, clarification is more the name of the game. Right? We have the base, the scaffolding, what it is. And now we're going to, on the upper part. Again, on the upper part, just a little bit of blending. Trying to diffuse all of this into the upper area of her eye. So it transitions down. It's lighter, and it gets darker as you go up. And tomorrow we'll add in darker greens. So we can again introduce that green, introduce that. Okay, we can do it also for the sides. Okay, so we wet this side area, and we can take some of this green, introduce the green. And as we come to the end, we can start to think more about the final image. Okay, tomorrow we'll do the darker green, having a mental battle with myself. Okay, and sometimes at this stage I make up when I see something that wasn't exactly there before. I can either play it up or try to suppress it. But again, that depends on what I see. Sometimes you see a shape and go, oh, that looks good, that looks interesting. And you can choose to play it up or not. It's your artistic vision, I guess. Alright, is that it for this one? I think so. Oh, actually, I'm going to do some of this orange while I have the chance. And then tomorrow we'll do the darker under. Got this leg out, a little bit of this. And that is number 1, which I would say looks pretty good, but I'm biased, so don't listen to me. Okay. Alright, so same deal with number 2. We're going to do the green of her eyes for the lighter green, and then tomorrow we'll work on the darker green. So first, I'm going to need more water. Alright, so with that, we do the outside to show where, because some of these lines, it's getting lost, and that can happen with watercolor. It's not exactly as stable as some others, so I like to pull some things back into focus. And eyes are very important, especially for the audience. That is what people will see or focus on with your character. Okay, and I'm gonna do some wet. So wet the brush, and then we're gonna drag it across the top. Try to diffuse some of this green so that there's a bit of transition. Tighten up bits of the dress, her tank top, and the snake, which I really want to push tomorrow when we do the darker green, but this will be a placeholder. Okay, tighten this up a little bit, over and under. Alright, oh yes, our water. Okay, so now we have that mixed. We can go in with some pre-stuff for the tomorrow. We can lay out where some of our dark greens will be. And again, at this point, I can go off of feel. Maybe I see something that I want to emphasize. And sometimes I'll make mistakes and want to suppress some of those mistakes. It all depends, really. Okay, and alright, do some water, or whatever water's left on this. And let's stay in that. Okay. And that is number 2. Yeah. Well, wait. Hold up. That orange, I do want it back in certain areas. And do a little bit over here. What are we doing? What are you doing? Okay, some brighter orange. Now when I wash it, these lines will fade again, but you can feel them, and that's what I'm mostly going for. And I think that's okay. It's number 2. All right, I think we did everything on number 3 except for the green. So green, green, green. Again, we gotta draw out these eyes, because yeah, the more you go over it, sometimes these lines can get lost, and you gotta reintroduce them. Okay. Again, a wet brush. We're just gonna streak it across the top. Streak it across the top. All right. And again, we can do wet for this side plane, and then put this green in. This is the dark side of the shirt. And again, we're punching up things that might have gotten lost that we want to clarify for tomorrow. Okay. We're gonna need just a little bit more water. Okay. And again, we can do some wet into wet, or watercolor into wet. And that is that. All right, so that was 1, 2, and 3 for today. Tomorrow we'll be detailing, especially with the blues and the green, that dark green. And we should be done for the week. Maybe some odd ends and stuff like that, but that should be it. All right, so I'll see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Hello again. So it's another day of summer study watercolor. And today we're going to be doing some touch-ups and sharpening of things. So what I want to do first is take these 2 browns and put them into this orange brown. That is the first thing I want to do. So let's do it. So let's take this, get the brush and mix it. Mix. And then we're gonna transplant this. I should have done this one first. I just realized. Oh well. Okay, so there's that. And we take a larger brush that's dry, soak up the water, soak up the watercolor, and then transplant that into where I want it. Transplant. And this is a common occurrence for myself, because this will be pretty much dry, and then I'll clean this out and then do fresh for phase 3. We are coming to the end of phase 2 today, and then we'll wash it down and do phase 3. So now we have this one, and for this one I think let's take another drop. So I have my eyedropper, put in some more water, and then mix this. Mix. Try to mix it as well as I can. And that's a beautiful chocolate color. And so now we're gonna put this in here. Now we can do that easily by just pouring it. Still have some dry. Okay. So there we mixed. There we go. So now that that's done, now we're gonna do more dry brush with our smallest brush. So this is not going to be used, so I put it in water, swishy swish, and clean that. The dirty water and the cleaner water, and then clean it again. And we'll do it one more time just because it was so concentrated. It might take a bit to get it. So the dirty water and then the cleaner water, and swish, and there we go. And as for you, I think we're done with this. Same thing. Just get the excess off. Swish it around. The dirty one, and now in the clean one. Again, dirty water, the cleaner water. This is one of my oldest brushes. And there we go, I think. All right, now I think it's pretty clean. All right, so now we have this. If we want to use some of that more pure brown, we have these 2 browns now in this orangey brown. We're gonna mix this all later, but first we're gonna do some dry brush. And of course we have darker blue, darker green for the dry brush. So smallest brush is this one, my little detail brush. And we take this and we activate some of this. So for the green, and then for the blue, and now that will be that. And now let's start painting. All right, so here we are. We have our colors and we have our tiny little brush. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the eyes. I'm going to use that dark blue on these eyes. So take a bit of water and then move it. So it's already dry, well, most of it. I put in a bit of water and now I'm mixing it to the right consistency for me, where it's not too thick and not too thin. We get thicker as we go, but first we're going to do these eyes because the eyes are some of the most important parts of a painting. I usually start with this, and it really makes the eyes pop. And by pop, I mean look really good. Okay, so I'm now in the detailing. And you know what they say about details, right? All the best parts are, no. But we've done the heavy lifting. We've more or less done our job. Now compare this eye to this eye, right? This eye to this eye. It just punches it up just a bit, and that's what we're doing. Okay, so I take it slow. The detailing part is one of the slower parts, and that it takes some time because I have a tiny brush and we're not going for coverage. We're doing details, little tiny sections or big sections, but I try to go slow and steady on the eyes. Okay, slow and steady, but keep it moving. Okay. So at every phase, from the first phase is more or less the blocking phase. Phase 2 is clarification and plussing of that initial step, and we're coming at the end of phase 2. That's nice. That's beautiful. Okay. And now I can do every other part that's blue, but I can also do other sections. So swish it in some water, clean off the brush, and then say I want to do this green, the green for the dark part of her eyes. Seems like a good thing to do right now. And so trying to make sure that I'm not getting my hand in, and so we're touching things up. Alright, that's one eye and eye number 2. And when we get to the total detailing phase, we'll go over the intricacies of that. But yeah, we're starting to slow it down because we're focusing with precision in a smaller area. So I'm gonna probably scratch out the highlights at the phase 3. Alright. Of course you can do some little, alright, again, swish it in some water, clean it up, swish it in some water, and then swish it in some cleaner water, and then again. So those are her eyes. Also want for her nose, have this pinkish magenta. I want to use this for her nose, the underside of her nose. Okay, we can do other areas like the border between her eye and maybe the corner of her mouth. But yeah, now of course, at the end of the day, your audience may or may not see the things that, you know, went into the making of art, because more or less the audience doesn't, I mean, they care, but they don't care. That you stressed over, that's just how it goes, right? A lot of details they're not gonna realize, recognize, or even see as they glance over the thing and go, oh, cute, and then move about their day. And that is fine. That's the life of an artist. You do it more for yourself. Okay, so now let's do some darker. So with the brown, I'm gonna go the underside of her head. Okay, but we're just trying to tighten things up. I don't know, I find this fun. You kind of go into a zen-like state and you're just painting. Remember, do it for you. Well, everybody has, I guess, a different philosophy. Some say you should make art for the audience, or the viewer, or whatnot. And I'm like, okay, that's, especially if you want to sell something. It's like, what would the audience think is cool? And then draw or paint that. But I guess ultimately, it's about finding that balance between what you want to do and what they want to see. And sometimes you don't know, right? You don't know what the audience will take to what they like because you don't know them. You know, well, I'm not even sure you know you. I don't know all of me. As long as I live, I figure out new stuff about myself. I don't think there's any right or wrong to it. It's just, it's life. You live it. All right. Do some of this under. So yeah, detailing is just a lot of tightening up. And you're gonna see a lot of this on the next phase when we do less of the overall painting and more, well, the early part is broad brush strokes and then a lot of detailing. But we'll see that when we get to it. Okay, so the lines that are getting lost or starting to look kind of funky, I go in and touch up because we don't want no funky lines. I'm sorry, I'm amusing myself as I tend to do. All right, now we'll do her legs. This orangey reddish brown. Okay, and so this is like a preview of what phase 3 will be mostly about, and that is a lot of detail. I like it. It can just be one of the slower bits, and also you're never quite sure if, I don't want to say it matters, but the biggest part is there, right? You can see the vision. This is it. This is what it looks like. Washing the brush, wash it, and then dip it in the cleaner water. And all right, I do want to do some of this green for the gem. Almost forgot some of the green part. Okay, so for this you can go over certain areas just to make it very clear. And the dress. So mostly we're doing the under part that is in the shade the most. All right, I think we have it. All right, looking it over to see if there's anything else that needs to be done. Let's do some blue, a little bit of blue. So try not to keep remembering where I have put paint and not drag my hand through it. And I want the underside, a little collar, and for her legs. Okay, and okay, just a little bit more, and I think we'll be done. All right, and that is number 1 done. I think for phase 2, you'll always see something. You'll always. Okay, and now, so this is the end of phase 2. All right, so for number 2, it's the same as number 1. So I'll go over this one pretty quickly or just show the highlights. But we're gonna do the darker versions to tighten this up, and we'll go from there. So first, again, the blue. Start with the eyes. So once I feel like I get the eyes, the rest is cake. So let's go. I'm trying to see, where did I put them? Let's also do her nails, because she just wouldn't look right without them. Alright, let's put a little bit underneath, and this little thing, sharpen this, and toenails, and for this foot, and that is the blue. Let's do that nose, and her smile lines. Okay, to that, what? Browns and then greens? Sounds like a plan. I'm trying to remember not to put my hand to some of these colors. Of course, define some areas that I feel need it for clarity's sake. But again, we do a lot of this in the final phase. Yeah, for the tail, again, try not to put my hand through wet paint. And I find this incredibly relaxing. Incredibly relaxing. Okay. I think I might want some of this in some of the darker areas. Clean water. So say areas like, because there's areas of like the nose, the ears, and the feet, and the hands, I guess, too, yeah, where there's a more reddish, pinkish tone. Okay. There, clean off the brush, and let's do some greens. And for this one, I think there's going to be more green than two. So again, for our eyes, sharpen this up to the other eye as well. Again, I usually do darker upper and then let it fade and transition down. Sharpen up some of this. Let's work on the snake for a moment. Sharpen up some of this. Let's maybe some of this, just to break it up from this and this, and some of that underside. I'll do a little bit here. Oh, I forgot her little gem and the dress. And I think we're alright. That is number 2. So number 3 is the same as number 1 and 2. We're going to do some detailing, and we'll start with the blue. usually a great place to start, because I usually start with the eyes, but I think I'm gonna go, because we're gonna go this way, do the nails first on this hand. And there you go. And while we're here, we're just sharpening up some of this. And now let's do these eyelashes. Well, actually, the wings. There's part of her wings that are that magenta, purple, and then there's a blue section. And actually, there's also a chocolate brown section. For the simplicity of her character design, I just usually narrow it down to 2. Alright, pretty much got it. To be honest, I think doing the eyes is one of my favorite parts to do. It's that little blue. And why is it my favorite part to do? I think it's because there's so much life in the eyes. I think that's what makes it kind of cool. Plus, maybe because I do it at the end, the eyes at the end, that it feels like I'm coming towards the finale. Maybe. And now, other blue. So underneath, the light is here. There'll be a bit of rim, and then about here, and then at the back. And let's do this part from waist. All right. Light from here. So the darker part would be near the back, the wings. Also, when you paint, everything is usually a neutral, and what you're actually doing is you're pushing the lights and dark. A dark over a light, or a light over a dark. Now, I'm saying that as a very simple thing, but it is much more complicated, as any artist will tell you, because there's a lot of thought going into, okay, if a light is here, or say that you're standing in front of a window, then you are the dark in front of the light. But then also the reverse can happen, where there's a very dark object and there's a lighter object in front of that. But I think that's what makes it fun. It's the strategic thinking, the wondering if you can do it, and then realizing, oh my goodness, I can do that. That's always fun. Whenever you realize that you have a skill for something that one time was not a skill at all, you were like, I don't even know where to start. That's always a fun situation. Okay. And this thing, and the toenails. Okay, let's do that. I'm just in my element, just moving it along, just painting. The choices have been made earlier, so now I'm not really thinking about choices. I'm now fulfilling my own personal contract with myself to get this thing done. All right, that is the blues. This dirty water is now looking pretty dirty. And then to the clean it off, do that again, clean it off. Now what color? Magenta? Sounds good. Okay. I notice that I say that a lot. Okay. I never knew I had a verbal take, especially when I paint. Did not know that. It's just one of those things that gets revealed as you, although I never actually thought I'd be making videos on the internet. Who knew? All right, it's like sometimes you get yourself into situations where you're like, I never saw this. I'm making videos for the internet? That's just crazy. Why would I do that? So never think of yourself in a way that pigeonholes yourself into, it's like, oh, I never do that stuff. It's like, you never know. You might. Circumstance. I gotta remember, okay. I think the blue should be fairly dry. And of course, you can always move the painting to get into certain areas. The underside, it wouldn't be too dark, but I do want it. And I'm trying to do the far sides away from the light. Some of this line details. Oh, wait. Let's get the underside of this tail. I think that's... I also noticed that sometimes I hold my breath, and I'm not exactly sure where I picked that up or why. I'm guessing you're holding your breath to keep your hand steady, I guess. I really don't know if, does that work? Legs. I think I'm below most of the blue, so it should be good. So I do it mostly on the outside of the leg, because again, the light is here. It'll be darker on the opposite side. But I will do some of this, and the lower inner part of the leg, and the outside ankle, foot. And again for this side, underside of, and luckily I already outlined a lot of that stuff in the drawing process. Ankle, and I think just this side of her kneecap. Okay, so for the green, dirty water, clean water. Once more clean water, and we should be good to go. Again with the green, these eyes. So it's darker at the top, and then we're coming down and tightening up some of this stuff. Okay, light source. So some of this edge as we come towards the front. Maybe a little bit of this and the back side. Yep. I gotta worry about that brown. So the back part and the underside. Around this. And of course it's not exact. I can embellish things, manipulate light, but overall I think we've got it. Sound unsure. Let's tighten this. Tighten up these light lines. Now of course when I wash this down it'll fade back. But I want to make sure that I have some sort of indication for my detailing phase. Okay. Is that the green? That is the green. All right, are we done? I believe we're done. So, give me a moment. Okay. All right, so this is the end of phase 2. We have just about everything that it needs. We could call it quits, right? Again, like the first phase, we can call it quits here. We have everything that we need, colors, the definition. You can clearly tell who the what the character is. It's watercolor, the color variations, and all of that. So I could call it just quits. This is the painting, but I'm not going to do that. My total process, this is to show my total process. My total process usually goes to about 3 for larger scale paintings. I'm showing my process for a larger scale painting on these 3. This is pretty much my predictable process of my larger stuff, just in a smaller form. So we're going to go one more round and I'll show you what I do for that one more round, one more phase, shall we say, which is a little bit of 1, more 2, and then we round it out. And that phase 3 is the end. So that is Beautiful Beast Kiss Summer Study Watercolor, the end of phase 2. And I'll show you what we have on next time. As we begin, we wash it down and then we'll start again for phase 3. So the next video will be the finale. So thank you for joining me. I have been Trey Hodges. You can find my work at treyhodges.com. Take care, keep shining, and power to all of the creators. See you next time.